The campaign to ruin Tucker Carlson continues. It wasn't enough to fire the guy without telling him or his audience why. Bit by bit, we get these ridiculous leaks. It's my opinion, they're very clearly from Fox, to places like Media Matters, this far-left smear machine whose mission it is to ruin Fox News and now other conservative outlets. The latest was probably the funniest yet. This is what they think is going to make Tucker's audience, ? Turn on him. Watch this one.
Can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer. It's personal. I'm not speaking of you, but more in general of ladies. When they go to the ladies' room and powder their noses, is there actually nose powdering going on?
Sometimes.
Ooh. I like the sound of that.
Most of the time it's lipstick.
Do pillow fights ever break out? You don't have to.
Not in the back.
Okay, not in the back. Okay. That'd be more a dorm activity. Okay.
This is naughty precise nurse territory.
I'm sorry. So you are such a good sport, such a good person. Thank you.
I got 2 more. There's 6.
I know you do, but you do not deserve that, and I mean it with great affection.
I got you, man. Which way do you want to go?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Let me tune in.
And there you see his true misogyny come out against that makeup artist.
Yeah, I was.
This is what they have.
I was done with Tucker after he described a woman as allegedly yummy. But the fact that he wants to know that when you go to powder your nose, whether there's nose powdering going on, that's just the end of it. I can see why Rupert Murdoch, who is renowned around the planet as a gentleman of probity and character and discretion, saying we can't have this guy around us any longer. This is just disgraceful.
Correct. Now that my audience is calling Fox News Foxwiser because of their betrayal and the fallout in the numbers after the betrayal. It continued on Wednesday night where Fox went down from the 7 p.m. in the demo. This is the number they really care about. Down to from the 7 to the 8, from 170 to 155. The slide continued last night or Wednesday night at the 9 p.m. to 148. These are terrible, terrible numbers for the Fox News demo. 10 p.m., 122. And in that hour, MSNBC beat Fox in the demo. They are now doing the equivalent of what Bud Light did when they released the Clydesdale ad with the country guys on the porch and trying to bring in the blonde conservative to save them at 8 p.m. They're going to have Kayleigh McEnany sub-host the 8 p.m. next week. I'm telling you, this is the Clydesdale moment. Let's go back to what we think they love. This is going to save it as Foxwiser continues to struggle to get itself out of its basement toilet ratings.
No, they're absolutely extraordinary. As I mentioned earlier, I used to guest host for Tucker a lot, and I'm just some like dilettante Canadian coming down from the hills to Manhattan. But I would have been, I would have been too ashamed to go into the building the next day with these kinds of numbers. The one that got me, I think, was it was one day last week. When you're doing, this, Megyn, you're thinking, have we got a strong lineup tonight? Am I going to beat Rachel Maddow? And even better, if I beat Hannity, that'll, be good. I'll enjoy doing that. The one guy we never had to worry about was, I can't even remember his name, the 8 o'clock guy on MSNBC. Because
Chris Hayes.
Was I'll take your word for it, because I never even bothered finding out his name, because we always knew that no matter how bad a night you have, you always beat that guy, because he's such a total loser. And I couldn't get over the way one night last week, whoever was doing the 8 o'clock slot lost to Chris Hayes. And it's not difficult to figure out why. You're absolutely right that when you get rid of a fellow, you want to not just let him go, but to damage him sufficiently so he has no value to anyone who might be minded to hire him after you. And I've been through that on a much smaller scale than Tucker. But every aspect of that, what's going on with Tucker, is familiar to me. For example, this woman who supposedly worked on the show and has admitted that she never actually met Tucker, but she's being interviewed by people as the person who will lift the lid on the real Tucker Carlson. I heard that. some guy who, again, I'd never met, I'd never emailed with him, I'd never texted with him, I had no connection with him, and suddenly he's giving interviews, lifting the lid on the real Mark Steyn, and this is just like a standard operating procedure. Tucker, by the way, Tucker's done his show from the Mark Steyn studio right here. So there are guys in the room right now, there's cameraman, makeup lady, who've actually had far more contact with Tucker Carlson than these people saying, oh, right. I'm the real Tucker Carlson, it isn't pretty, I'm going to give you the inside scoop, by which they mean that while he's sitting here between breaks, we keep the tape running and then leak it to Media Matters and the New York Times.
It's not one of these is even remotely offensive. So here's what's happened now. I mean, I've been on the air. My audience will vouch for me for almost 10 days now, calling out who I believe is doing all of this. And that's the head of comms at Fox News, Irina Briganti. This is her bread and butter business. She's done it to many of us in the past. If I'm wrong, Irina, go ahead. Why don't you state it on the record? Come on and we'll debate it, right? If I'm so wrong, let me see your phone records. Let's talk about it under oath. I would love nothing more. Now, because they're getting more heat for what they're clearly trying to do to Tucker, they write this ridiculous letter through their lawyers, Wilson Sonsini, to Media Matters, Angelo Carusone. And they write as follows. We write on behalf of Fox Corporation, this is the lawyers, to clarify any misunderstandings Media Matters may have regarding previously unaired footage that Media Matters has published in a series of articles, headline Fox Leaks. The unaired footage is Fox's confidential intellectual property. Fox did not consent to its distribution or publication. By the way, in the original draft, according to Angelo, the first draft of this that he received from the lawyers read, Fox did consent to its distribution or publication. Then an hour later, they had to correct their Freudian slip and put back in the word not. And Fox does not consent to its further distribution or publication. This proprietary material was given to you without Fox's authorization. Who is Fox, may I ask? Lawyers at Wilson Sonsini, because I have a very good idea that your executive vice president in communications 100% consented by sending it over the transom to the good people at the New York Times and then later the Media Matters people.
Yeah, because this is, again, standard operating procedure. As you know, there's a 1 hour show, but in the course of that show, there's 5 breaks in which the host is just sitting there and he has a bit of his makeup retouched or he texts his producer with everything. The only source of all this material is from Fox News. And you have, as you say, in Irina Briganti, a figure who is notorious for just combing through all that Fox intellectual property, as they put it, until she can find the 5 or 6 things that are damaging. Now, in this case, they aren't in the least bit damaging. They make Tucker seem rather endearing. He's like joshing with his makeup artiste about nose powdering or whatever. If that's the best they can do. This is somebody did this to me in a court case a couple of years ago, and they released all these things you say during the breaks and while you're waiting to start and everything. And it was one of the lamest things I ever, I've ever seen. Because I don't do a lot of the Tucker's very garrulous and he's talking and he's texting 24 hours a day. The one for me was totally lame. I didn't actually do any bleeping words as you occasionally do, Megyn. The closest I got was I was so annoyed, I went, without actually reaching the vowel sound. And that's all they had. And it was entered as a piece of evidence in a court case against me. We thought it was so lame that we actually put it up at my website. It's still up there. And I thought that was the lamest, behind the scenes thing you could ever come up with, because the gold standard, as you know, is that Bill O'Reilly moment.
Amazing.
But
we'll do it live.
Yeah. That's fantastic. We all wish we could live up to that. And I thought this was so totally lame. We posted it at the website. I've never seen anything lamer until these bits of Tucker, talking about finding a lady yummy and wondering about nose powdering. If that's the best they've got. He was in Oxford last night doing some charity event or something. And the interesting question, that the problem that, Rupert Murdoch has, is that they've given no explanation as to why they dumped Tucker Carlson. They didn't dump him for lousy ratings, because his ratings were better than anybody else. They have not yet. They're in a worse position than Transhauser, Bush, or whatever they're called, in that they haven't actually come up with any credible explanation as to why they took away the audience's favorite host. And Kayleigh McEnany and whoever else they get have got an impossible situation until they actually come up with a rationale for what they did.
Experts say that China is hoarding a massive amount of food. They will soon have over 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China misleads. One China expert says that they, of course, would never admit to something like that. Well, what does China know that we don't? When it comes to global food shortages, China is the canary in the coal mine. You see, China's the world's #1 food importer. They rely on the rest of the world to keep their people fed. So they cannot afford to mess this up, or there could be riots or civil panic or worse. That's why it's a smart idea to stock up on your own on a kit of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. Hand-packed in the USA, the kits are compact and stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and their 5-star reviews on the website rave about the flavor and the taste. Right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food by typing in the code MK at checkout. Go to 4patriots.com, use that code MK and get your 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food. Again, that's 4patriots.com, use that code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.